So welcome to the RSA Conference Lightning Talk. This one's specifically titled The Value of CyberSec Certifications, a Holistic View. So in this session, we'll hear from 3 experts. Each expert will speak for 7 minutes to share their big idea, one after another. Following all 3 of these presentations, we will have a Q&A for the remaining time. So I'll encourage everyone here that's witnessing all 3 of these 7 talks to chime in the Q&A in the chat here. You can write your questions anytime in the chat, but at the end, we're going to cover them. And also, because this is for all 3 people, please direct your questions to the specific speaker. So with that said, I'm going to introduce our first of our 3 speakers. That's going to be Sarah Pickering. She is the Director of Talent Development at Independent Security Evaluators. She's a self-proclaimed HR nerd, and she works with business leaders to ensure that people strategy aligns with company values and culture. Sarah strives to build trust and high levels of employee engagement while supporting teams and leaders to achieve their goals. So with that, Sarah, I'm going to pass it to you, and you're going to take it away with our first little segment.
Thanks, Sam. So as Director of Talent Development at ISC, I also handle all of our recruitment. So I will be talking a little bit about what recruiters are thinking about in terms of certifications at different levels when we're looking at resumes to hire, things like that. But to start off, I will definitely say that every job seeker is different, every manager and company is different. So there is no one size fits all certification plan that's going to take you through your first job on up through the ladder to CISO and on into, getting those social security checks at retirement. So there's no right or wrong answer. What you really need to do is learn how to evaluate those certifications for yourself. So, everyone learns differently, reading books or blogs, online or formal classroom settings to get degrees. There are labs at things like RSA and other conferences and CTFs and, YouTube. There's so many different ways, but certifications are one of these options that you can pursue to show your next potential employer your knowledge, skills, and abilities. So, ISC goes around to all these conferences all over the world, like RSA, because we host the IoT Village. And so I meet a lot of people who are brand new to the job market, or they're looking to change their career and just switch gears altogether, but they have no real world experience at all. They want to break in. So early in your career, when you're choosing a certification, I would recommend that you don't just pick it because a lot of other people have it. Be intentional. So there are 3 questions that you might want to ask when you're choosing this cert early in your career. The first is, does this certification help me get past the ATS, the applicant tracking system, or as I refer to it, the black hole of resumes? You want to get past that filter. If your resume is identical to someone else at the beginning, a cert can help you stand out and get you through that filter. So which one are you going to choose? What I recommend doing is look at all the job descriptions that you have been gravitating to, scroll all the way to the bottom, and down there you're going to find this section that says preferred qualifications or nice to haves. And if you see the same cert in a lot of those job postings, that's probably one you want to go research for yourself and see if that's in your, in your interest. Next question is, does this certification help you get the job? So a lot of interview processes require you to take a test or complete a challenge or speak to a challenge that you've completed and how you did it. So the study, the preparation, and the actual certification exam might help you with that. So lastly, does it improve your work performance? So concept and theory are important, but will the certification help you complete your work at a higher quality and efficiency? So I tend to look for certs that have practical labs, and then the exam requires hacking and then explaining what you did and, more importantly, why you did it. So once you're in the door, maybe you're mid-level, you can stop doing certifications, right? No, probably not. So while having real world experience is a big deal, continuing your education shows me and other recruiters that you have drive, that security isn't just your 9 to 5. So certifications, building your home lab, doing bug bounties, playing CTFs, All of these things are showing me that you are very passionate about what you do, so don't stop. One thing that people start to look into and consider at this point are certifications that require a certain amount of real world experience before you can even apply to take them. So again, I would recommend you go back and ask those same 3 questions. Don't just take a certification exam to be part of this exclusive club. If it's just a title to put some letters at the end of your name on LinkedIn, maybe pass up for something more applicable to what you're doing at that point in your career. I would also recommend at this level to be taking certs that require a lot of writing. Certification organizations, they're not going to ding you too much on grammar, but writing and communication are extremely important. If you want to move to that mid and senior level, you need to be able to communicate well. At ISC, we want to hire people who are willing to mentor our interns and our associate level analysts. Additionally, you need to be able to explain the impact of these security issues to decision makers, and they aren't always technical people. So communication, very, very big deal. So once you're at the senior level, when you have a lot of experience in the field, there can definitely start to be a level of diminishing returns on these certifications. They don't bring you as much value as they once did when you started out. You'll hear from John next. He's sort of like a cert addict. He might be an exception. But at this point in your career, you probably have a lot less time to give to them. You've got more family, you've got more work responsibilities, but it's really important that you stay up to date. We stay employed because, the malicious actors continue to find new ways to break our stuff. And so you need to stay up to date. You need to stay relevant. Some certifications require you to recertify by getting professional development units. So those might be a good way to sort of force yourself to continue getting updated on trends. Another avenue that I would recommend at the senior level point in your career is to consider different types of certification outside of security that add value to your organization as a whole. So looking for training and certification in business, in leadership, and in project management, growing your organization and helping it be more effective and efficient. That's going to open doors for you within the company. It's going to help you get noticed by other leaders and executives. So who's looking for these certs? At ISC, we don't require certs or degrees. I think a lot of companies are realizing that's not everything. It's not the most important. A lot of hackers that I know have been, breaking things since they were 13 years old, and sort of that formal testing just isn't for everyone. But there are some places that are really looking for them. I think the big box consultancies, they look for them because they do all these RFPs and they add a lot of value to that. The government or government contractors, they look for them because of the GSA schedule. And then lastly, some hiring managers, they just like them. They have them, so they want to see the candidates have them. But, if you're doing your due diligence and choosing the ones that you have, you should be fine with that. So, choose them carefully, and good luck with your certification exams. I'll hand it back to Sam.
Hey, Sarah, thank you so much. Everyone insert clapping emoji. So with that, we're moving on to our next speaker. And remember, we're going to do Q&A all at the end, so please input your questions in the chat. So our next speaker is John Hammond. He is a security researcher at Huntress Labs, analyzing hackers' persistent footholds and doing outreach to share education in cybersecurity. So he's going to continue the conversation from his perspective. Take it away, John.
Hey there, Sam. Thanks so much. Hey, everyone. I super appreciate you passing the baton to me and let me chat a little bit about, I guess, kind of my perspective on certifications and training kind of as a industry professional, is what they say. I don't know. There's the title for my name and that card here. They put this word senior in front of security researcher, and I have no idea why. So I want to chat about certifications and kind of how that dug me through my career, I suppose, right? When I was first getting into the industry or starting off my career, the job that I was applying for, I was looking at more of kind of like the government and military, like contract-based work. And they required me to be compliant with DoD 8570 or some standard regulation. I think it's 8140 now, but it's like, hey, John, if you want this position, if you want this role, you have to be IAT level 2 compliant, or IAM, I think, for another kind of bucket in there. And that's, I think, one distinction I will make is that when we're chatting about certifications, there are different buckets, or there are different kind of categories that you might put them in your mind. And the way that I put them in my mind is, for one thing, kind of more high level or very theoretical, very conversational about topics and concepts that you might be looking about in the industry or in security. A lot of times I think those certifications get down to a multiple choice test, and like, hey, here's a boatload of information. Can you absorb this? Do you understand it? Can you talk about it? Can you talk the talk, right? And that's one category. That's one bucket in my mind. But I think the stuff that I really love, and when Sarah said, "Hey, you're a cert addict, John," is the hands-on and practical and competency-based certifications. So while I was going for that very, very first role, I needed to have kind of one of those high-level, very conversational, theoretical certifications, but I wanted to prove my merit. I wanted to prove my competency and what I could do, what I could really, I don't know, do on the keyboard, right? So I wanted to pour more into those really hands-on application-based certifications. And I think that is what helped carry me from a beginner introductory position, kind of junior role, into that more mid-level position where, like, hey, I want to be doing some penetration tests. I want to really be working with the engineers and the architects to see how our software works and what tools and things we can develop and use. And that is what made the difference for me. Like, certifications not only got my foot in the door, for one thing, but still helped me level up my skills and keep on growing. That's why, okay, if you get to a senior position, or I think in a senior role, sure, cert addict, and that, oh, maybe it's a little embarrassing when you're into the double digits of certs attached to your name. Sometimes, hey, does it feel like you're going a little bit overboard? I think it's all for learning. I think it's all for bettering yourself. I think it's for sharpening your skills. So I'm still active and wanting to learn more. I'm taking a certification exam right now, not the exam itself, but I'm studying for an exam right now. And I have another one in my mind just lined up right after it, because I want to stay on that grind and I want to keep learning. And I think if you get in that mid-tier to senior role, you're just sharpening yourself and you're getting better and stronger. That, I think, is really that value in, okay, mid and higher up to senior, and that value in doing something hands-on and application-based and practical. So I would urge you, if that's something that you're interested in, yes, we enumerated and listed off, oh, you could play capture the flag, you could watch videos on YouTube, you could write write-ups and share and talk at conferences and events like this. There's so much that you can do, but with the certification, you have this badge, right? You have the certificate, and that is something that's super tangible, and you can put it on your resume, you can share it around, you can demonstrate and prove, hey, people will really take me seriously now, right? That's, I think, something that comes from having certifications. That's the value that I find in it, as in, it'll get you in the door, it'll keep you moving forward, and then you'll keep learning from that and continue to grow. So that's my pitch. I think that that might be the best move for certifications. With that, I think I'll kick it off to Sam. Did I go a little too early? Did I speed run that one?
No, it's all good. If that just leaves more time for questions or follow-up discussion pretty much in the Q&A portion. And we are getting quite a few questions here. So thank you so much, John. More clap emojis. Awesome. So as we move through this, our next speaker on the topic is going to be Don Donzel, and he is the founder of the Ethical Hacker Network Online magazine, and is known by his Twitter handle @EthicalHacker. He is the director of community for INE and their wholly owned subsidiary, eLearn Security, and they are a provider of practical cybersecurity certifications. So it'll be an interesting take coming from both HR, someone who is a cert addict, and now someone who is working on developing certs and tests. So take it away.
Well, thanks so much. And first of all, before I get going, just want to say thanks to the RSA conference for having us, as well as a special shout out to the IoT Village. Some of you are here because, you know what, it's the largest security conference in the world. And many come specifically to RSA, not only looking to advance their technical knowledge, but also advance their careers. Well, this could be for them as an individual, as well as for their organizations. And there are organizations here that are big and small. But in the end, everyone is really striving to advance. So there are those that are just out of college striving to advance by at least getting an entry-level IT job with the hopes of advancing to a cybersecurity specific role sometime, hopefully in the near future. Then there are those that are already in cybersecurity and they're looking to advance beyond their entry or their mid-level tech positions. There are those who are striving to break into management, and who knows, maybe one day sit in the executive chair. And then, as we've all been seeing lately, as John was describing, there's all these different buckets of people as well as buckets of certifications that they can take. Well, there's this new bucket right now. So those are the people that constantly hear of the millions of open positions with great pay in this exciting field of ours, and they're eager to switch careers completely, and they have no experience at all. Now, all of these different groups, well, they have needs, and it's incumbent on us, the training and certification organizations, to not only prove our worth to each and every candidate, but what we offer in the form of training and certification exams should also prove the worthiness of each of those candidates to their future employer. Because in the end, isn't that what certifications are all about? Job readiness? So to have that ability to prove, i.e., certify, that you either have a baseline of knowledge, or better yet, as John mentioned, that you can really walk the walk and talk the talk, so you can do what you say that you can do. Now, because different levels of one's career demand various provable abilities, and that could be technical or otherwise, as Sarah mentioned, well, the needed credentials also change for each stage of one's career. So, in a nutshell, you must be prepared to prove in each phase of your career what your abilities are. And I know this may sound crazy coming from somebody who works for a certification body, but that doesn't always include getting a certification. So think about it this way. If you're starting your own business, does the bank loan officer ask you if you're a certified professional penetration tester? Well, of course not. However, if you're trying to get them as a client and perform their pen test, well, you bet they will. If you're trying to prove your ability to, I don't know, analyze malware or do some other higher technical skill like threat hunting, pen testing a corporate environment with their Active Directory, doing forensics, or any number of other disciplines that fall under the ethical hacking umbrella, well, do you really think it matters to them if you passed a multiple choice exam on basic networking? Probably not, because you're way past that at your point in your career. Now, in our third example, and this is something that all three of us have been talking about, those different levels of your career, you may be trying to make it into senior leadership. So, do you think they really care what your degree is in 10, 15, 20 years after the fact? Not really. It's a lot more important to show current skills to handle the job at hand. So, it really matters what you need, but more importantly, when you need it. So for that reason, I'm not going to badmouth any other certification providers or training providers. That's not my job. We want to stay agnostic. In fact, you're probably going to hear me talk not only about our competitors, but also in a positive light. So there are some cases to be made that all of them have their value and their place on your resume. It really all just depends on when, where, and what your budget is. So my job here today is to kind of take all the examples that we were talking about and jump into some very specific recommendations. So using our three examples, here's what you might want to consider from a certification perspective. Again, there's always education and experience, but we're here to talk about certs. So starting with your entry level positions, you'll need that foundational knowledge first. And of course, since security itself is a more advanced IT topic, well, again, a little contradictory, but you may not even need a credential specifically proving your security skills in order to get your first job. But of course, it wouldn't hurt. So something else to consider is that networking is the basis for pretty much everything that we do. So to start off, I might recommend something like CompTIA's Network Plus. Another good one would be Cisco CCNA. Even some other good ones from, let's say, a sysadmin perspective would be some basic level of a Microsoft certification. Now, starting points in this industry vary greatly, even those that come from non-technical backgrounds, but most of you who are here have at least some knowledge or experience. That could be from help desk, sysadmin, dev, networking. Your mileage may vary. So having other certs around topics like cloud, I don't know, maybe some specific programming languages, but then definitely other operating systems like Linux and Mac OS. Those are all great things to set your foundation. So then you could possibly then consider, of course, again, as always, your path may differ. So you may not want to do any of those, but you do want a security specific beginner credential. So in that way, Security Plus is very good. Also, our very own EJPT or eLearn Security's Junior Penetration Tester cert, they're great for this beginner category. Now, that should be more than enough to get your foot in the door. I think John may agree on this. But of course, once you're past that entry level position and you're starting to search out higher, mid to senior level technical spots, well, honestly, our field starts to look a little less at those box checking credentials, as both had mentioned earlier, and more on experience and hands-on ability. So this is where those practical certs that Sarah mentioned really start to take over from those simple multiple choice exams that you see. So great examples here would be, let's say, either the rest of the eLearn Security Blue and Red Team certifications, but of course, I'm a little biased, so let me mention a few others. Other organizations like SANS, GIAC, and Offensive Security are also really good options in this mid-tier to prove your higher technical ability as well as getting that practical hands-on experience. Now, I'll leave you to explore reviews of the experts and some content creators out there on the web to decide which one is best for you. Obviously, I'm going to be a little more biased there. But then after that, you may actually have your eye on a management role. Then search on topics, kind of like what Sarah mentioned, on other things that will help you do the job, like Agile and Scrum, project management, and of course, not the technical side of security, but security policies and procedures. Well, those become a lot more valuable to prove not only your knowledge of what needs to be done, but also that you can manage people and projects. So it's great there to have the experience that show that you can do that. Sometimes if you don't have the experience, certification is a great way to do that. So things like becoming a Scrum Master or PMP, the project management professional, those are some good foundational exams on this level. But then you have your security specific certs like CISSP or CISM. And then of course, there are the GX certs that also fit very nicely into this category as well. All right, I'm getting close to the end of my 7 minutes. I threw a lot at you very quickly, and there's only so much you can do in that amount of time. So this is obviously not exhaustive or inclusive of the hundreds of type of certifications that are out there, but it can give you somewhat of a roadmap. And then, honestly, it's your own desires that will lead you the rest of the way. So of course, you always have to continue to reevaluate who you are and what you want with your career. But I also highly recommend that you do that in consultation with a mentor. That's always recommended to have in your bag of tricks. And then, of course, you put all these things together and your perfect career awaits you, no one else, because it's custom fit. Thanks for your time, and I look forward to questions.
Thank you so much, Don. And with that, we have concluded the lightning round, rotating for each speaker. So I think we're all going to be on screen now, and we're going to be doing some questions. Remember, you can put your questions in the chat. If your question was entered in the chat earlier, enter it again now, and make sure if you have a question that's directed specifically at one of these people, just add their name. While we wait for a couple of questions to come in, Let's see here. We do have a sort of a question around the CISSP from Shannon McCormick. She's saying, it appears to me like the CISSP is more of a requirement for experienced security roles, and do you agree? So is there one of you that wants to take a bite on that one?
Go for it, John. I see you unmuted.
No, I was going to ask, hey, does anyone else want to take this one?
I can take that. I do know
I got something, but I know someone else will have something better.
and I think Sarah can probably add a little bit more to this, but there are a lot of HR managers that don't necessarily know exactly what the job entails. If you have your CISSP like I do, and I believe John also has it, what you're going to find is that there are questions on there like, what's the very first thing that you do when you have an incident? And it's not handle the incident. It's not something technical. It's always refer back to your policies and procedures and see what that tells you to do. So that alone tells you that it's a lot more on that management side and how you're supposed to run your program. So with that, a lot of hiring managers mistakenly put that as a qualification for their technical jobs when it's really not a technical cert. It's more of a management cert. Probably the reason that they do this, Sarah, maybe you can add a little bit more to this, is because the CISSP actually requires before you take the exam, as you mentioned earlier, that you have a certain amount of experience. So maybe that's a way to guarantee at least that somebody else verified that you have this security experience. But again, I think it's misplaced in a number of job descriptions.
I would definitely agree, Don. And one thing that I like to tell people, when you do get down to the requirement section of a job posting, it's always going to have more things than you actually need to do the job. And there's this big disparity, especially for women, that when you see that list of 10 things, women will say, well, I only have 8, so I'm not going to apply. And men typically will look at that and see, well, I've got 5 out of 10. I'm going to go ahead and apply. And I think this might be one of those things where if you don't check every single one of those boxes, go ahead and apply anyways. So that one might not apply as much, but don't worry about it if you don't have it. So I do think it's something worth having, but not a requirement to do the job.
Very good points, and right on. Yes, I mean, there definitely is a talent shortage. So, don't feel like you're an imposter. A lot of these groups have all talked about here, from Sarah to even John. They're doing a lot of education, so they want to bring people into this industry, not exclude them or gatekeep. So let's see here. Go into the chat for more questions. Let's see what we got. I think if I scroll up, here's one from Michael Dunn. He's asking a question for all the speakers to tackle, which is performance-based testing versus standardized testing. So sort of weighing, I guess, comparing those two. How do the speakers feel about performance-based versus standardized testing?
So, I'm going to say the same thing as I have, right? Anything that's hands-on and you're actually getting to hack into something that's live, something that's at the test site, is to me always more useful. And like I said, being able to write about it, I think being able to explain why you've done something it can be at times even more important than actually getting the right answer. So at ISC, we have a web app challenge to do. And if you don't actually find what's going on, we actually really look at the things you've tried to do, even if it failed. So those types of things are really important. I think those are more valuable.
I think as all three of us had mentioned, that there are different levels of your career. So when you get into more of those standardized testing, so again, probably more along the lines of being a multiple choice exam, those are things that show, you know what, you have an interest, you studied, you can retain that information, and you can basically regurgitate it on a multiple choice exam. that has value. It doesn't mean that there's no value there, but that's a lot more valuable to an entry level position to say, look, I'm really putting forth this effort and I can do this. I don't have the experience yet. I don't have the number of years under my belt to where I had the time to study all this stuff and be as amazing at Python as John is. But you watch his YouTube channel and he's just, okay, that took years. That's not what somebody who's looking for an entry level position is looking for. So again, there's different levels for that. But once you start moving past that entry level to mid or higher senior level type job postings, then that's when you really start moving into those performance-based testing or the practical hands-on certification exams.
All right, let's move on to the next question. Here's one that I believe Cassie was asking, and is also one we were sort of internally talking about as well. They're asking, right, essentially a lot of universities are offering master's degrees, or there's a lot of academic things that you can do. So what is our thought on the usefulness of these master degrees in cybersecurity or other college degrees when it comes to the market?
So I mentioned, and John kind of touched on this too, that the big consulting firms, the government contractors, some of them are going to require degrees, but even those large companies are realizing that a degree isn't everything, and that people learn differently. And so certifications are holding a lot more weight in substitution of degrees. But also there's so many people in cybersecurity that never intended to get into the field. And so they have degrees in like language arts and healthcare, psychology. And so they get to check that box, but that undergrad degree didn't get them anywhere. And master degrees can be similar. So they're certainly not everything, but my recommendation is honestly, if the degree is something that's important to you and you want to get it, wait till you get in the door at a company and let that company pay for it through tuition assistance programs. Don't pick up that bill yourself.
And to even clarify, there is some discussion going on in the chat around the idea of online only degrees versus say a degree from I guess maybe a more accredited school. Like if there's a program saying this is an online only degree, one person mentions here that some HR professionals call out online only degrees.
I would just say, as long as the college or university is a certified one, you're in good shape.
I would say that too. I mean, there's always going to be some organizations that are a little more snooty about what you have and what you don't have. But I think as the industry grows and they realize that there's so many resources out there, not only online universities versus your standard, university experience that most people have, there's also a lot more free resources out there. There's a lot more training organizations out there that deal specifically with these things. Now, I do know that there's plenty of university programs that actually supplement what they do with certification prep. So they themselves know that what they're teaching may not necessarily prepare you for the real job, but on the other side, those large companies, large tech companies, I mean, like Google, Microsoft, all the major tech companies now are also realizing that. And so they're saying, you know what, degrees really aren't that important anymore. What's really more important is that you know how to do the job. So if you can pass that web app test that Sarah's going to put you through, or you're going to win one of John's CTFs, any of those things, you put that on your resume and that will make you stand out, honestly, even more than a degree can, no matter what the institution is. So that's my 2 cents. John, I know you have some thoughts on this as well.
I'd agree. So, I mean, I feel like I've gone through education and training, but I don't have the like golden receipt and the stamp of paper that says, hey, you have a degree. Companies, organizations, whoever I chat with, they're not going to like kick you off the table. At least I feel like, in my opinion, in my experience, because you have something that can showcase, as Dawn had said, you have the competency and merit. You've done, and you can prove yourself worthy to do the job. I think that is kind of just what prevails above all else. That's not to put down any other efforts. Oh, let's go for a master's degree. Let's go for any other degree. If that's what you want to do, absolutely do it, and that is going to help you. But option, not a requirement.
The other thing I like to point out when you're choosing a degree program, I'm just always going to promote this, is I really like programs where your professors are adjuncts that work in the field. So professors that are tenured and that's all they do, they're great with theory and concept. But when you attend a university where you have all these adjuncts that actually are doing the job that you want someday, that can be a really great experience. They really know what they're doing. They're really staying up to date in real world application. The other value to doing in person, because you're going to hear it everywhere you go, every networking thing, every conference, is the way to get a job is through networking and through who you know. And so when you do, the live in person, training or degrees, that's how you meet other people in the field.
And I think to add to that, John made a really good point that, we get asked the question all the time, what's more important, or what should I focus on? Should I focus on degrees, certifications, or getting more experience? And honestly, that answer is yes, do them all. However, if you don't have one, you kind of need to make it up. So like if you don't have a sense, your other senses need to be a little heightened. And the way that you can do that is by doing other things in the community. So as an example, to overcome that catch-22 we often talk about where, well, I don't have the experience, so I can't get the job. And if I can't get the job, well, how do I get the experience? Well, what you really need to do is not only network like Sarah said, but go compete in CTFs, go do bug bounties, go do write-ups, do a blog, do all those other things. Go volunteer your time for a nonprofit organization. Go volunteer your time for an open source project, or create your own project, whatever it may be. But these are all technical things that you can actually show a real result. You put all that stuff on your resume, and trust me, all of that is hands-on practical stuff along with your certifications, and that could totally outweigh somebody who just has a degree and none of that other stuff. Trust me, you will rise to the top.
All right, good conversation. So moving along, let's see what other things we can answer. Here's a question I think that some of us were talking about internally, which is essentially, how do I know when I have enough certifications? And maybe we can dive a little bit into,
maybe it's like being in love, you just know.
Yeah. But I mean, it seems like there might be a balance between wanting to get certifications for your own interests and then also knowing if you have enough certifications for
John, you tell us, when is enough? Come on, man.
It's funny. I was the one.
Spending your time wisely.
I was the one that threw that question kind of in our internal ring when we were brainstorming some ideas. And I see some guys in the chat that are like, hey, well, yeah, when you get your dream job, I have to say, it's when you feel like you're happy and you're content. Like, I feel very, very fulfilled at my current role. So I'm not going to be like scouting. I'm not on the market to go look for a new gig. Because if that's the case, I want to be looking through those job recs and those applications to see, oh, what certifications could I knock out to look more attractive to that organization? And if you're feeling like I'm good, man, I'm set. I'm feeling all right now. I don't feel like I don't need to grind and hustle and burn out however many certifications in a month. If you feel like I've got what I'd like, then be happy. I don't feel like you need to go crazy paying for certifications or suffering through late night studying. Just get what you like in your career, and then keep learning when it's fun and when it's good for you.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because that's not to say that you shouldn't keep learning. I mean, we all know that not just in IT, but security more specifically, it's a never-ending arms race, as Sarah mentioned earlier. So you always have to keep learning. but that doesn't always necessarily mean that you have to do a certification in order to prove that. So you can try all of, a whole bunch of free sites out there, go practice on your own, go do your own research. If you're the type of person that just happens to learn a new technique better by studying to go basically studying for that certification, hey, then go do that, but you don't necessarily have to take the certification. But at that point, if you're almost already there, well, why not? But again, I think as long as you're happy, you're having fun, and you're enjoying what you're doing, that's kind of what dictates where you go next.
Well, I think that's a great way to end the conversation. We are out of time. So I want to thank all the speakers who came here today to talk about this. I'll also throw out one thing, which is that I believe there is a David Foote in the audience here who has a talk that is kind of continuing this conversation. So he is talking on his thing, on Thursday. So if this is an interesting area for you guys, just look up that speaker, and that will be another place you can continue to learn more about this type of topic.
Hey, David.
So thank you for everyone for being here. It'd be great to connect with you all online so you know how to reach us. Follow up with us offline as well.
Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Much appreciated. Happy hacking.